So if you don't know, my friends, Kate Middleton is really going through it these past few weeks. Reports are swirling that she has been shaken to her very core, spending her nights Googling herself, scanning every comment, every whisper, and feeling utterly betrayed by the public reaction to her recent appearance. You see, she turned up wearing what many believe was a wig, and rather than sympathy, what came flooding in were questions, mockery, and confusion. For someone who expected a gentle hand of empathy, the criticism has reportedly left her disheartened, stunned, and emotionally unsteady. But let's pause here and really dig into what this means. We're talking about Catherine, Princess of Wales, a woman who has spent over a decade in the royal spotlight, someone who was supposedly groomed for this role, trained to handle public scrutiny with grace and composure. Yet here she is, according to multiple sources, absolutely devastated by public commentary about her appearance. This isn't just about vanity, my friends. This goes much deeper than that. The woman who once stood confidently beside William during their engagement announcement, who weathered years of waity-Katie jibes before their marriage, who seemed to glide through royal engagements with picture-perfect poise, that woman appears to be crumbling under pressure that should, by now, feel routine to her. What changed? What shifted so dramatically that she's now losing sleep over internet comments? But let's take a moment here. Why this reaction? Why are people questioning her story rather than supporting her outright? The truth is, the narrative around Kate's health has been confusing from the very start. One moment it's precancerous cells, the next another storyline. Months of disappearance followed by vague statements that only created more speculation. And this is where the palace's communication strategy has failed spectacularly. Think about it, we live in an age of 24/7 news cycles, social media speculation, and public demands for transparency. The old model of royal mystery and carefully controlled messaging simply doesn't work anymore. When you disappear for months without clear explanation, when your medical updates are vague and contradictory, when your first public appearance involves what looks like a poorly fitted wig, people aren't going to respond with blind sympathy. They're going to ask questions. The public has evolved, my friends. They're not the deferential subjects of decades past who accepted whatever crumbs of information the palace chose to share. They want authenticity, they want consistency, and when they don't get it, they fill in the gaps with their own theories and speculation. And frankly, can you blame them? When people saw her in that ill-fitting wig, they weren't mocking illness, they were reacting to the lack of clarity, the contradictions, and yes, the fact that as one of the wealthiest women in Britain, such things shouldn't have looked so poorly managed. Let's be brutally honest here. We're talking about a woman with access to the finest stylists, the most expensive hairpieces, the best medical care money can buy. The royal family's annual budget runs into the tens of millions. They have teams of people whose entire job is to ensure that every public appearance is flawless. So when Kate appeared looking anything less than perfectly put together, it raised legitimate questions about what was really going on behind palace walls. Was this a deliberate choice to appear more relatable, more human in her struggle? Or was it a sign that the usual support systems weren't functioning? Either way, it backfired spectacularly. The public didn't see vulnerability, they saw incompetence. They didn't see authenticity, they saw confusion. But imagine the scene behind closed doors. Kate scrolling endlessly, unsettled, perhaps even spiraling. Sources claim she was left wondering how much more she could endure. She eventually had to stop searching her name altogether because it was driving her into madness. Picture this, if you will. It's late at night in Kensington Palace or Adelaide Cottage. The children are asleep. William is well. Who knows where William is these days? We'll get to that in a moment. And there's Kate, alone with her phone, typing her own name into search engines, scrolling through Twitter threads, reading comment after comment about her appearance, her health, her marriage, her future. The woman who was once photographed laughing at public events, who seemed to genuinely enjoy royal walkabouts and public engagements, is now reportedly terrified of what people are saying about her online. She's described by sources as being in a state of near panic, refreshing news sites obsessively, looking for any sign that the narrative might be shifting in her favour. Now, I ask you, does that sound like someone rooted in confidence? Or someone desperate for validation she isn't receiving at home? Certainly not from William. And now not from the public either. This brings us to a crucial point that I think many commentators are missing. Kate's reaction to public criticism isn't happening in a vacuum. This is a woman who, by all accounts, is not receiving the emotional support she needs from her husband. Multiple sources over the years have painted a picture of William as increasingly distant, preoccupied with his own royal duties and future kingship, and less attentive to Kate's needs as both a wife and a mother. When you're already feeling emotionally isolated in your marriage, when you're dealing with health issues, when you're managing the pressures of royal life, largely on your own, of course, external criticism is going to hit harder. Of course, you're going to be more vulnerable to public opinion when you're not getting the validation and support you need from your closest relationships. And then, as if things weren't messy enough, she stepped into more controversy at that banquet with Donald Trump. Can you imagine? Trump himself insulting her publicly, yet there she was, cozying up at the table. The irony is almost too much to bear. Let's talk about this for a moment, because it really encapsulates everything wrong with the current royal strategy. Here's a man who has publicly made disparaging comments about Kate, about the royal family, about Britain itself. And yet, there she was, smiling and playing the gracious hostess as if nothing had happened. The cognitive dissonance is staggering. But here's what's interesting, she looked far better at that event than she did with that wig. Perhaps, just perhaps, she had checked the commentary and decided she needed to look stronger, sharper, more polished. The hair was perfect, the makeup flawless, the dress impeccable. It was as if she was sending a message. I'm still here, I'm still royal, I'm still perfect. But it raises another question. Why is Kate so desperate for approval? Could it be because her marriage is not giving her stability? Because let's be honest, when you're shaken inside, it shows in every aspect of your life, including the marriage, which insiders have long whispered is strained, distant, even fractured. The signs have been there for years, my friends. The separate engagements, the body language at public events, the way they seem to exist in parallel rather than as a united front. William appears increasingly focused on his future role as king, while Kate seems to be struggling to find her place in this new dynamic. Remember when they were newlyweds? The chemistry was undeniable. They seemed genuinely happy, genuinely connected. Fast forward to recent years, and what do we see? Forced smiles, practiced interactions, a relationship that looks more like a business partnership than a marriage. And now, with Kate's health struggles and emotional fragility, those cracks are becoming impossible to hide. Now, shift the lens for a moment. While Kate faces this spiral of self-doubt, the wider royal family is caught in its own mess. Sarah Ferguson's leaked emails tying her closer to Epstein, the never-ending saga of Prince Andrew's disgrace, and the whispers that enemies inside the palace itself are behind these leaks. Let's examine this carefully because it's absolutely crucial to understanding the current chaos. We're not just talking about external criticism or media pressure, we're talking about internal warfare within the royal family itself. Someone, somewhere within those palace walls, is leaking information, sharing private details and actively working to undermine other family members. The Fergie emails didn't leak themselves. Someone with access to sensitive information decided to make them public. Someone wanted to damage her reputation further, to tie her more closely to the Epstein scandal. But why now? What's the motivation? And more importantly, who benefits from Sarah Ferguson's continued disgrace? A snake pit, ladies and gentlemen. A Shakespearean court where everyone waits for the chance to drag another down. Camilla, William, Charles. It could have been any of them. All jostling for control, all desperate to own the spotlight. Think about the dynamics at play here. Charles is king, but aging, increasingly aware that his reign will be shorter than he hoped. William is heir apparent, impatient to take control, frustrated by having to wait. Camilla is queen consort, but still fighting for full acceptance and legitimacy. Each of them has their own agenda, their own vision for the future of the monarchy. And in this environment, everyone is a potential threat. Sarah Ferguson, despite being divorced from Andrew for decades, still carries the York name. She's still connected to the family, still has access to information and relationships that could be valuable or dangerous. So, when information emerges that further damages her reputation, who benefits? Who wants her completely out of the picture? The same calculus applies to every member of the extended royal family. Everyone is watching everyone else, looking for weakness, for opportunity, for leverage, and in this atmosphere of suspicion and competition, it's no wonder that Kate feels isolated and vulnerable. And here's the irony. When Harry and Meghan stepped away, they were branded as selfish, destructive, dramatic. Yet what we're seeing now is the rot from within. The family eating itself alive while the Sussexes quietly build their legacy in California. This is perhaps the most damning indictment of the current royal situation. For years, we were told that Harry and Meghan were the problem. They were the ones bringing drama, creating chaos, threatening the stability of the monarchy. They were painted as attention seekers, as ungrateful family members who put their own interests above duty. But look at what's happened since they left. Has the monarchy become more stable? Has the drama decreased? Have the leaks and scandals and internal conflicts stopped? Absolutely not. If anything, they've gotten worse. Meanwhile, what are Harry and Meghan doing? Meghan is focusing on her businesses, building her brand, creating content that actually resonates with audiences. Harry is standing tall in his advocacy work, supporting veterans, promoting mental health awareness, making a genuine difference in the world. They're not constantly embroiled in scandals. They're not leaking information about other family members. They're not creating chaos and drama. They're living their lives, raising their children and building something meaningful. And they're doing it without the constant support of a massive royal household, without the inherited wealth and privilege that the rest of the family takes for granted. The contrast is stark, my friends. While Kate can't sleep because people mocked her wig, Harry and Meghan are actually accomplishing things, creating positive change, building a legacy that extends beyond titles and ceremonies. My friends, does this not reveal the fragility of the institution? A Princess of Wales unravelling over hair, a king irritated by his son, a brother scheming to outshine a father, all while they try to convince the world that Meghan and Harry were the problem. The monarchy is supposed to be this ancient, stable institution that provides continuity and leadership for the nation. Instead, what we're seeing is a family so dysfunctional, so consumed with internal conflicts and petty grievances that they can barely manage their own public image, let alone provide moral leadership for anyone else. When the future Princess of Wales is having mental health crises over internet comments, when senior royals are leaking information to damage each other, when the heir to the throne seems more interested in palace politics than public service, what kind of institution is this really? And let's not forget the broader context. Britain is facing serious economic challenges, social problems, political instability. The public is dealing with cost of living crises, healthcare pressures, climate concerns. And what is the royal family offering? Wig drama, leaked emails, family feuds. Kate may need to step back, breathe and stop chasing public approval, because the more she Googles, the deeper the spiral. The wig was a misstep, yes, but the real story is the cracks it has exposed, the cracks in her image, in her marriage, and in the palace machine itself. Here's what Kate needs to understand. Public approval cannot be manufactured through perfect appearances and carefully managed PR campaigns. Authenticity resonates with people. Genuine service resonates with people. But when every appearance feels calculated, when every statement feels focus grouped, when every interaction seems performative, people see through that. The public isn't stupid. They can sense when someone is genuinely committed to service versus when someone is just going through the motions for the cameras. And right now, Kate's desperation for approval is making her seem less authentic, not more. She needs to stop reading the comments. She needs to stop obsessing over her public image. She needs to focus on the work, on the causes that matter to her, on being a genuine force for positive change. That's how you earn lasting respect and admiration, not through perfect hair and flawless photo ops. But that requires a level of confidence and self-assurance that she clearly doesn't possess right now. And that brings us back to the fundamental question. Why is she so insecure? What's missing in her personal life that's making her so dependent on public validation? This circus, my friends, is only going to grow more chaotic as William edges closer to the throne. And if Kate is this shaken now, one has to wonder, how will she endure the storms still to come? Because here's the thing, what we're seeing now is nothing compared to what's coming. As William prepares to become king, the scrutiny will intensify, the pressure will multiply, the stakes will get higher. And if Kate can barely handle criticism about a wig, how is she going to handle the intense pressure that comes with being Queen Consort? The monarchy is at a crossroads, my friends. The old ways of doing things aren't working anymore. The public expects more transparency, more authenticity, more genuine service, and the current generation of royals seems woefully unprepared for this new reality. William appears to think that being born into privilege is sufficient qualification for leadership. Kate seems to believe that looking perfect is more important than being genuine. Charles is still fighting battles from decades past. And meanwhile, the two people who might have actually modernized and revitalized the institution, Harry and Meghan, have been driven away. Tell me what you think, my friends. Do you believe Kate's reaction is about public scrutiny or about deeper struggles within her life and marriage? Are we witnessing the slow collapse of an outdated institution, or can the monarchy still reinvent itself for the modern world? Comment your thoughts below, and as always, thank you for joining me here on Meghan and Harry Tales. Until next time, this is Adrian signing off.